Hey everyone. So now that the Trump Xi meeting in China is behind us, the attention turns back to Iran and the question of what happens next. Trump has been threatening and saying it's going to be really bad for you, and we're going to go back to strikes if they don't make a deal. And then he keeps extending the ceasefire, and that's emboldening the Iranians. We've talked about that a lot. It's giving them a sense that time is on their side. Their strategy all along has been to drag it out, and it from their perspective, it's working. They know that Trump doesn't really want to resume kinetic action. So they're trying to take advantage of that. They're also saber rattling from their side. We're going to get into all of this in this video. So let's just get right to it. So here we'll start with this tweet from Gunther Eagleman. Iran just dropped the most pathetic propaganda video yet. A bunch of regime goons in mosques getting defense training while one clown waves a rifle and screams, "Trump, I have come to destroy you." Are these mullahs serious right now? Okay, let's take a look at this video he's talking about.
Has been showing video today of government supporters, some receiving defense training inside of mosques, weapons and all. And one Iranian had a more direct message for Donald Trump. Listen to this.
Trump, you cannot take the Strait of Hormuz from Iran. I have come to destroy you.
So with the strait still blocked to shipping, authorities in Abu Dhabi say a drone attack caused a fire close to a nuclear power plant just west of the city. No injuries or major damage has been reported, but the UAE says the targeting of a nuclear power plant, whether it's by the principal perpetrator, as it says, or one of its proxies.
Okay. So they're putting out these propaganda videos, apparently training people to use weapons. And this is also on Iranian state media. Here's a story from WANA, from Iranian state media from yesterday. And look what it says here. Weapons training on Iranian television programs. Look at this news item. The broadcasting of several television programs on the Islamic Republic of Iran Broadcasting centered on weapon utilization training and displaying a military atmosphere, and it has been accompanied by widespread reactions in media and social networks in recent days. In one of these programs, broadcast on the Ufog channel, an educational segment related to handling a Kalashnikov rifle was shown. In this item, an individual in military attire and with a masked face explains the method of preparing and firing the weapon to the host. In the final part, the program's host fires toward an image of the United Arab Emirates flag placed within the studio decor. In reaction to this program, an Israeli journalist wrote that Iran's state channel Ufog broadcast an instructional video on how to use a Kalashnikov, an action that, according to him, could be both a sign of Tehran's concern regarding the possibility of renewed U.S. military action and be considered an attempt to instill an atmosphere of emergency and alert in public opinion. He described this approach as a rather clumsy display. I'm not so sure. Simultaneously, some other programs of Iran's state television went on the air with the presence of hosts who held weapons or spoke of their readiness to participate in war. Mobina Nasiri, a host on Channel 3, appeared in one of these programs holding a weapon and announced that if necessary, she would participate in the war along with the other women, and they would join the war as a Janfada. Janfada is the title of a campaign launched in recent weeks following threats regarding a U.S. and Israeli ground attack on Iran, with the aim of declaring the Iranian people's readiness to participate in confronting the U.S. and Israel and defending Iran. So far, more than 31 million Iranians have registered in this campaign. We've talked about this in some previous videos, the Janfada campaign. It is a completely implausible number that a third of all men, women, and children have registered for this campaign, because if Iran has a total of 85 to 90 million people, and a percentage of those are the elderly and children, and how is it that 30 million Iranians signed up for this campaign? It's obviously absurd. Segments of these programs were republished in domestic media and social networks, drawing mixed reactions. Some users evaluated this type of programming as a sign of preparing public opinion in the tense atmosphere of the region, while others criticized the normalization of displaying weapons in the national media. Now it quotes Jackson Hinkle, who's just like this anti-Semite social media influencer. Jackson Hinkle, an American political analyst, wrote in a post on the social network X that Iranian state television is training people on how to use a Kalashnikov within the framework of preparation for a potential U.S. ground invasion. There's a lot of strong suspicions that Jackson Hinkle takes money from the Iranian regime. He attended Hassan Nasrallah's funeral. Weird guy. The broadcasting of these programs takes place under circumstances where Iran, the U.S., and Israel, following about 40 days of direct military conflict that began on February 28th, are now in a state of fragile ceasefire and indirect negotiations. Although the attacks have stopped, political and military officials on different sides continue to warn about the possibility of conflict resumption. And the Iranian media space has also, over the past days, increasingly addressed the subject of public readiness and popular defense. Okay, so understand what's happening here. The Iranian regime, you see this video that Gunther Eagleman posted that we just watched with the signs of these people in mosques with the guns, the woman saying she's going to destroy Trump. And you have this article that I just showed you in state media about how they're training the population to use Kalashnikovs, and all these women and young people are willing to take to the streets to defend the homeland should there be a U.S. ground invasion. This is all a way of signaling to the U.S. the greater and greater costs of going in on the ground. You see, this is the new play for the regime. They know that the big sticking point in this whole story is that you cannot bring down the regime without something happening on the ground. You cannot bring it down from the air. And they want to signal. Now, of course, they don't think that they can beat the U.S. military in a fight. That's not what it's about. But they also know that the American population has no stomach for any conflict. They have no stomach for casualties. And that if soldiers start coming home in body bags because there are troops on the ground, it's going to be a very, very big problem for Trump. And that's what's happening here. They want to make it. They want to continue to remind the Western media, American media, Trump, the people around him, that there will be significant costs if they move in on the ground. That's what this is about. Okay. And then we see this also making it out to CNN, guns on the television and in Iran's streets as Trump renews war threats. This is from today. As night falls over Iran's sprawling capital and the snowy peaks of the Alborz Mountains fade into the darkness, thousands of Iranians have been routinely taken to the streets for state-sponsored rallies aimed at mobilizing supporters against the United States. Near Tajrish Square, an upscale neighborhood of Tehran, the inevitable chanting "Death to America" blares over a sea of Iranian flags, while street vendors hawk tea and souvenirs like patriotic baseball caps and patches to an enthusiastic crowd. And the one woman says she's ready to sacrifice for her country. They're all ready to sacrifice their lives. For Iran, the clock is ticking. Then they better get moving fast or there won't be anything left of them, wrote Trump on Truth Soldier. One elderly man carrying a makeshift placard offered to translate his sign, handwritten in Farsi. Nuclear and missile technology is as important as our borders, so we will protect them. We need nuclear power, clean energy, not a bomb, he told me, a reference to Iran's refusal to end its controversial nuclear program, which Trump has made a condition for ending the war. Trump knows we don't have a bomb, but he is attacking us anyway, he added. Now, how much freedom of the press is there in Iran? And I'm sure this person was approved to talk to this reporter. As swirling rumors and escalating fears mount of imminent U.S.-Israeli strikes, there's a growing sense of inevitability among many Iranians about the resumption of hostilities. We know this war isn't over. We know Trump is not really going to negotiate, says Fatima. He's going to be like, you do what I tell you or I'm going to kill you, and then he's going to attack us even if we do as he says. The rallies or night gatherings have been taking place across the country every evening for nearly 3 months, essentially since the start of the war. But recent days have seen the ominous appearance of public gun kiosks. Look at that, where civilians are being offered basic lessons in using weapons, a sign of how the hardening Iranian authorities are readying people for further conflict. At one kiosk at Van Eyck Square, we saw a woman dressed in black, in a black chador, learning how to handle an AK-47 assault rifle, with a masked man in military fatigues showing her how to strip and assemble the weapon. A few feet away, a small girl played with an unloaded Kalashnikov, aiming the weapon into the air before pulling the trigger and handing the gun back to her smiling instructor. The general call to arms is also being reiterated on state television, with several channels broadcasting their hosts brandishing assault rifles. One male anchor, Hossein Hosseini, on the state-run Afag channel, fired his rifle on live television into the studio ceiling after receiving a lesson from a masked member of the IRGC. Separately, a female Channel 3 presenter, Mobina Nasiri, that's her right here, addressed viewers while grasping an assault rifle with both hands. They sent me a weapon from Vanak Square so that I, too, like all of you, can learn how to use it. But not all Iranians are gunning for a fight. Just around the corner from the rally on Tahrir Square, in a tranquil park near the Cinema Museum of Iran, locals perused an open-air bookstall and sipped tea. We just want to live in a normal country, they said. Okay. So you see here that they're really ramping up these efforts to, project that the people of Iran are, grassroots, taking up weapons, ready to fight, ready to, to make it difficult on any ground incursion. That's what this is all about. It's all about discouraging a ground invasion. Now, before we go on, I want to tell you about an important event that we are putting on at Israel 365 Action over the course on Wednesday, May 20th, just a couple days away. And that is going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 8 p.m. Israel time, a webinar, Will America First Stand with Israel? An important conversation. I'm going to be moderating and hosting it. And will be Josh Hammer of the Josh Hammer Show and senior editor at large of Newsweek, a very important public intellectual, and he has a lot to say on this topic. Dr. David Wormser, who's a senior analyst for Middle East affairs at the Center for Security Policy in Washington, D.C., one of the great experts in the Middle East. He also has served in multiple presidential administrations in the U.S. and in the National Security Council. He's a real expert on these matters. And Pastor Rob McCoy, who was Charlie Kirk's pastor and faith mentor, traveled around with Charlie a lot and also co-founded Turning Point USA Faith. And a very important leader in the America First movement. He really has his finger on the pulse of where that movement is going on Israel. And this is going to be a very important conversation. You can sign up for this by going to Israel365.com/America First. You should find that link in the description of this video, or you can also sign up for it by clicking this or by scanning this QR code, and you can register for the webinar. And if you can't make it at 1 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, sign up anyway, because anyone who signs up, if you sign up and don't attend, you will automatically be emailed the full webinar after it's concluded. So you could watch the webinar on your own time. So register for the webinar, whether you can make it or not. It's going to be a very important conversation with some very elite minds, very elite thinkers on the topic, and looking forward to it. So that's Wednesday, 1 p.m. Will America First Stand with Israel? Let's get back to our subject at hand. So Trump, for good measure, his response to all of this is President Trump spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday, and he put out a tweet. He put out a tweet that says, "For Iran, the clock is ticking." Let's take a look at this short clip from Fox News.
Quote, "For Iran, the clock is ticking, and they'd better get moving fast, or there won't be anything left of them. Time is of the essence." Earlier today, the president spoke with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on the phone. Iran at the center of that call. Reports say the U.S. and Israel are preparing for possible strikes as a peace deal prospect stalls. Good afternoon. I'm Rich Edson in Washington, and this is Fox News Live. The Navy is keeping up its pressure campaign against Iran in the Strait of Hormuz. CENTCOM says U.S. forces have now redirected 81 commercial vessels and disabled 4 more in its blockade. There are big questions around what happens next in the conflict. Senator Lindsey Graham has a suggestion.
I think we had a wall on deal making. I would encourage the president look at reducing Iran's military capability even further. They've been dramatically weakened, but they're still targets that could weaken them more militarily. And I would also keep the embargo on to weaken their economy. Right now, I think they're trying to wait us out. I think they're playing games. And in the words of the president, I think they're crazy. I think he's right.
Now, the president just got back from his trip to China, which he called a great success. We have Fox team coverage of it all. Alex Holding standing by at the White House. But first, Fox business correspondent Ashley Webster is reporting live from Tel Aviv with the latest there. Ashley?
Yeah, good evening to you, Rich. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu talking with President Trump earlier today for about 30 minutes. We don't have all the details, but as you pointed out, the president posting on Truth Social that the clock is ticking and the time is of the essence. It's the same line of statements that we've heard for a number of weeks now. Benjamin Netanyahu calling a meeting of the security cabinet, his security cabinet, but that was ordered before he spoke with President Trump, so clearly trying to get a sense of where do they go next, and that is the big question. We do have reports that say the U.S. and Israel are undergoing the most intense preparations for these renewed attacks against Iran since the ceasefire was agreed last month. But Iran's foreign minister...
There you have it. So they're preparing for war, the U.S. and Israel together. But you notice he also said there that this trash talking from Trump, talking about how there's not much time and it's going to be really bad for them if they don't sign a deal. We've been hearing this for weeks, and the Iranian regime is playing it as follows. They're like, okay, we might get bombed again. He might start attacking again. They're going to start attacking infrastructure sites. The whole thing is going to be to get them back to the table, to capitulate and give into the demands. But in the end of the day, unless there's a ground invasion, they are confident that they can hold firm and that they can survive. They can hang on as a regime, and that's what all that stuff about having guns and the people being being trained to carry guns and having gun kiosks to give out guns to the population. That whole propaganda move is to discourage a ground invasion. That's where I think this is going from the Iranian perspective. A fuller account of Trump's warnings. Trump warns Iran's clock is ticking. Move faster. There won't be anything left. President Trump renewed his stern warnings for Iran to come to peace and end its nuclear weapons aspirations. The clock is ticking. Time is of the essence. The president also had a call with Prime Minister Netanyahu on Sunday. Quote, "Our eyes are also open regarding Iran," Netanyahu said. "I will speak today, as I do every few days, with our friend President Trump. I will certainly hear impressions from his trip to China and perhaps other matters as well. There are certainly many possibilities, and we're prepared for every scenario." The call with Netanyahu came amid regional intelligence assessments on Iran that restarting of military strikes might be coming because of Trump's frustration with Iran's tactics amid the closing of the Strait of Hormuz and the rejection of his demand to give up nuclear weapons aspirations. The prevailing assessment inside Iran is that President Trump may resort to restarting military action, and Tehran is now deliberately pursuing a strategy of deception and delay with the hopes that buying time will complicate any return to war, two regional intelligence officials told Fox News. They believe that the Iranian regime thinks it can delay developments and stretch the crisis out for at least 2 more weeks. It's always delay, stretch out, so that the situation could become more difficult for Trump to restart the military campaign, both politically and operationally. These sources say Iranian officials are looking at the World Cup and America's 250th anniversary as a backstop that could work in their favor. You see, they're always looking downrange, like what's the next destination on the calendar? They knew that he wasn't going to attack while the Xi Jinping meeting was going on or was imminent. And now they're looking at the July 4th celebrations, the World Cup that's coming, because they know that Trump doesn't really want to do this. And that's the fly in the ointment here. I know, Trump has done so many great things, and we know that Iran has been hammered really badly. But I've been saying since the beginning, it's not so clear that the regime is going to fall this way, especially when he's saying that the goal of the strikes is to get them to agree to this or agree to that. He's got to stop all this. They're not going to agree to anything. There's no they agree. It has to be taking down the regime. And unless you're willing to do that, this is not going to end the way we all hope it will. They could get beaten and battered, and they can rebuild. They have allies, China, Pakistan. They have people who will help them, Russia. And they will rebuild. And after Trump is gone, they will have a more favorable government in Washington. This is the problem here. Look, Trump also tweeted out this, or I'm sorry, posted on Truth Social with no comment. He posted this very strange looking meme. It's an American flag superimposed over the Middle East with all these arrows from the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Iraq, Afghanistan, all these arrows pointing at Iran, these red arrows. What exactly does it mean? Who knows? But he posted that last night. So there's a lot of saber rattling going on. We also have voices from the America First movement that are saying that it's going to be, all hell's going to break loose, and it's going to be a revolution against Trump within the America First movement if there are American troops on the ground. And it puts Trump in a tough spot. And the sad part of this whole thing is that none of this was necessary. None of this was really necessary, because had there not been a ceasefire at all, and had they just moved forward, take Cargill and really take down the regime, if they had actually pressed forward to destroy the IRGC and cause regime collapse, had they just not gone to a ceasefire, this whole thing might be much, much further along. And all of this delaying, all of the Pakistani efforts to delay and prolong the ceasefire that have been so effective has made life more and more difficult for Trump. With every passing day, closing line, just to repeat myself again, with every passing day that the ceasefire or advances towards regime change, real regime collapse, the longer that goes on, the more time plays in the favor of the regime actually surviving. So I don't want to be a pessimist here. This is still certainly a situation that we can win, but all of this delaying is only making it more difficult for that to happen. All right, that's all I have to say with this one. I'll be back with the next update as soon as I have something to say. God bless. Thanks for watching.